Good morning. So in Genesis 3, chapter 8, I'm reading from the Hebrew English version. Now, I also read from the King James version, which I'm going to read from you because that's where they got this one released. They got it from, no, I'm sorry. They did not get this from the King James. They got this from the original Greek. The King James also comes from the original Greek, but this one's actually more accurate than the King James version. And so that's why I'm going to read to you. It's more accurate because it's translated from the original Greek, which the King James version is too, but this one's more accurate, and I'll show you why. So it says here, 3:8, they heard the sound of the Lord moving about in the garden at the breezy time of the day. They heard the God walking around in the garden at the breezy time of the day? Yes, of course they heard him at the breezy time of the day, because he wasn't walking around in the garden. They heard the leaves rustling in the garden because the breeze was coming through. So this identifies God of the garden as Enlil. I'm not making this video to invalidate the gods or to tell you that there's no God and that you should become an atheist and be a deviant or something like that or become a communist. No, that's not why I'm making these videos. I want you to understand these stories so that we can continue our culture, which comes from these stories. And if you don't understand them, you'll have a false idea about God. Because if God is a breeze God and God breathes the breath of life into you, then you can get a misleading idea that God is the air, because that's what it says here, and it's a story and it's describing it in these terms, but because it came from a new Malish. Now in the King James version, I'm not going to go to my Google and look at it. I'm just going to tell you what it says because I don't want my frames to drop on this video. But on the King James version it says, and they heard God walking around at the cool time of the day. In the Young's literal translation, it says, at the breezy time of the day. The Young's literal translation is a literal translation of the Greek. The King James version is not a literal translation of the Greek. It's the King James translation of the Greek. So it's a little bit off. It's a good translation, but it's off. The original Greek translation is, at the breezy time of the day, they heard God walking around. Why? Because this is Enlil. This is Enlil. And, that's why it's the breezy time of the day. That's why he breathes the breath of life into you. That's your spirit is the breath. So that is what that is. I don't want to go. I don't know what else to say about it, other than the reason I'm making these videos is not so that you'll abandon these old stories. No, we should teach the old stories to the generation so that we understand the stories, and we can carry out the virtuous living that's why they wrote the stories, so that people would keep these beautiful holidays and that people would have virtuous living. That's the purpose of the stories. It is a little misleading in that it makes you think God is outside yourself, where the creator is really a thought thinker, and the thought thinker is a nothingness that thinks a thought, and the thought is a something. So it's kind of like on a two-pole universe, you have positive and negative. And so you have a force, which is a nothingness, which thinks into existence a somethingness. So now you have two things. You have a nothingness that thought a something. The something is the what we call reality, is the something. But the true thing would be the thing that thought it. That would be the true reality would be the thing that thought it. And then the thing that it thought would be something. And that would be the thing that it's looking at, and that's viewing it. So that would be the creator. That's the creator. So, obviously these stories are stories about, these old books. And the thing about these, why we should retain these books, is because they're the stories of a culture. They are the stories of the seasons. They're the stories of these different astrological seasons. You got the winter solstice and the equinox and the summer solstice and the autumn equinox. And it's nature. It's a part of our lives. We need to retain this stuff. I'm not telling you that this is, I'm not trying to invalidate these books so that you'll become a communist or some kind of a deviant or spend all your time, on your phone with tracking systems and getting injected with things and all that stuff. No, we need to go back to recreating our culture. And if we don't know anything about it, which no one really does, even people that read the Bible a lot don't know what I'm telling you. They should know it. It's part of the Bible. Right? Our Bible came from these older stories. It's part of our Bible. It changed. Let's understand why it changed. Okay, let's compare how it was and how it is, and why it's different, and what was the reason for the change in these stories that made it into a monotheism or actually a monolatry and then a monotheism. I believe it's because they were trying to get closer to this creator God, and the creator is the creator of all things. That's why when the Romans went into these old Jewish temples, they wouldn't find any statues. They're like, how come there's no statues? How come there's no images? Well, because they were trying to worship purely this really a nothingness that's the creator, that thinks everything into existence. So they were trying to get close to that. And so that's where we're at. The stories in the Bible are stories about how really they're evolving this religion. And we need to understand all this stuff. I'm going to eat some breakfast, so I don't have time to I'm kind of hurrying through this video, but it was important enough to make a video about how you look at the story. It's God is coming to the garden. He's walking around at the breezy time of the day. Why the breezy time? Well, because that's when you hear him walking around. Okay, that's in Lil. And Marduk, he's the one that puts the firmament above the earth with the body of the dead god Tiamat. And Enki's the one that makes man. Those gods have all been eradicated. Now the sun is just a light in the sky. Now the stars are just lights in the sky to mark the times and the seasons. And so Marduk's gone, and Enki's gone, and Enlil's gone, but they're kind of still there in the story. You can see where they were in the story. Now we have this creator God. This is the God that thinks things into existence. This would actually be the nothingness which thinks something into existence, which would be the something. So there you have the two poles, the positive and the negative, which is the fundamental laws of existence. You have a positive charge and a negative charge. So anyway, that's how that works. I'm going to eat my breakfast. So have a good morning. Goodbye.